No one bid on the pregnant girl with dirt on her face and hate in her eyes until Elijah Cole laid down 3 crumpled dollars. What began as a gesture of mercy soon turned into a war against a town that wanted her buried. The girl didn't flinch when the auctioneer spat beside her boot. Her arms were bound in front of her with fraying rope, her belly round, the thin cotton of her dress clinging to her like a second skin soaked with July heat. Her chin was up, though, even as the sheriff whispered something behind her, and the townsfolk laughed loud enough to drown it. Everyone knew what she was, or thought they did. And no one wanted her. No one except Elijah Cole, who hadn't meant to stop walking, let alone open his mouth. $3. The words came out like someone else had spoken them. A few heads turned. He stood with one boot half on the boardwalk, the other in dust, hat tilted low over his brow, and not a soul in Grafton knew his name. A drifter, maybe. Or worse. But that wasn't what they saw. They saw a man who didn't know what he was buying. The sheriff squinted. "You serious?" Elijah didn't blink. "I don't stutter." Another man let out a snort. "You just bought yourself a mistake, stranger." The girl said nothing, just kept her head high and jaw tight. That alone made him respect her. She'd been standing in shame all morning, hadn't cried, hadn't begged. And now she looked at him like he was either her last curse or her first chance. "You got a place to take her?" the sheriff asked, narrowing his eyes. "I'll find one." They laughed again, because in Grafton there were rules unspoken and promises written in blood, and one of them was, don't take in the likes of her. She was trouble stitched into skin. She'd been found in the canyon 2 weeks ago, bruised and nearly unconscious, too pregnant to run and too proud to explain a damn thing. No name, no story, just a sharp tongue and a refusal to cry. Elijah stepped forward and untied the rope himself, watching her flinch like she expected to be struck. He didn't touch her more than he had to, just turned and walked. If she wanted to come, she would. If not, he wasn't going to drag her. A moment passed, then another, and then the slow sound of her bare feet brushing dirt behind him. They walked until the sun dropped low, until the sound of the town faded into crickets and dry wind. Elijah didn't speak, and neither did she. Not until he dropped a canteen at her feet and gestured to the campfire he'd started near a cluster of mesquites. She picked it up slowly. "Why'd you do it?" He shrugged. "Felt like it. You don't know me. I don't have to." The fire popped. She stared at him like he was made of a language she didn't speak. Then, without a word, she sat across from him, legs crossed awkwardly around the weight of her stomach. She didn't ask for food, didn't look pitiful. Elijah had seen desperation 1,000 ways. This wasn't it. This was something tougher. "My name's Lark," she said at last. "That's all you get," he nodded. "Elijah." She looked at him for a moment longer, then curled on her side, one arm cradling her belly. Like it was breakable, Elijah stayed awake a little longer, listening to the coyotes in the distance and wondering how a girl like that had ended up being sold like a mule no one wanted. And what kind of man had done that to her? They moved on at first light. Every town they passed through looked at her the same way, pregnant, dirty, alone. But Elijah kept beside her, never touching, never pushing, just watching. And every time someone spat at her feet or called her a name loud enough to hear, he looked at them in a way that made their voices stop mid-sentence. It wasn't until the third town that trouble finally came looking. They'd stopped, at a trading post outside Mason Ridge, just to rest. Lark was hunched beside the well, ankles swollen, face pale with heat. Elijah was inside, buying salt and jerky, when the man rode in. He was young, maybe 20, sharp suit, clean boots, didn't look like a threat until he opened his mouth. Well, he drawled. "Ain't you just full of surprises?" Lark went stiff, didn't even turn. "You thought you could run and that'd be the end of it. he said louder now. You got something of mine, girl. Elijah stepped out then, bag in one hand, eyes already locked on the man. You know her? The man's grin widened. She's my fiancée. Lark stood up slowly. He's lying. Am I? The man looked at Elijah now. She was promised to me. Took off one night, didn't even leave a note. Now look at her. Probably about to pop. And she thinks she can raise my child without me. It ain't yours, Lark said, voice like steel. The man laughed. You gonna believe her, stranger? Girl don't even know her own mind. Elijah didn't move. You got proof? The man stepped off his horse, something cold in his eye. You think I need it? I'm her fiancé. She's mine by law. No law I know says a woman's property, Elijah said quietly. And no law says I gotta let you near her. That's when the man's hand went to his belt. Lark shouted something. The next second moved like smoke, fast and slow at once. Elijah's hand shot out before the man could draw. A crack, sharp and final. The man was on the ground, clutching a broken wrist, yelling curses that turned to threats. You'll pay for this, he hissed. She's carrying my heir. No, Lark said. I'm carrying a mistake, and I'll die before I let you touch it. They rode out that night, fast and quiet. But the man hadn't lied about one thing. He wasn't alone, and by the time they reached Dry Hollow, there were 3 more men watching from the shadows, riders in black dusters, with nothing in their eyes but intent. Elijah felt it like a storm rolling in. Trouble wasn't behind them anymore. It was circling, and Lark, she was hiding something too. Something deeper than fear. Something Elijah hadn't figured out yet. But he would. Because by then, he wasn't protecting her just because of pity. He was doing it because something inside him had shifted the moment she said her name, and he knew, whatever war came, he wasn't walking away. They reached the edge of Dry Hollow as the sun bled red across the rim of the hills, soaking the sky like an omen. Elijah kept Lark close, but didn't touch her. She rode behind him on the sway-backed mare he'd bought with the last of his silver. Coins, arms around her belly. Every jostle of the trail making her wince through clenched teeth. She hadn't complained once. But the sweat on her brow and the way she bit down on her bottom lip told him enough. She was hurting more than she let on. The town was little more than a crooked spine of buildings. Saloon, general store, blacksmith, sheriff's office, all backed by a scattering of homes leaning against the slope like drunks needing a wall. Elijah hadn't planned to stop long, just enough to find water, rest the horse, maybe steal a few hours of sleep before moving on. But even as they passed the last fence post and the road flattened beneath them, he knew Dry Hollow wasn't going to let them go easy. He saw it first in the glint of light off a rifle barrel, barely shifting in the shadows above the saloon's awning. Then, in the way a man standing outside the mercantile stilled, narrowing his eyes, not at him, but at Lark. Recognition passed through the dust like wildfire, and in that instant, Elijah knew the young man with the broken wrist hadn't just run home licking his wounds. He'd sent word, and someone had been waiting for them to arrive. They rode slow through the main road. Lark's eyes were sharp, scanning faces. She didn't speak, didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Elijah felt her fear like a second heartbeat. Stay close, he muttered low. They pulled up outside the livery stable. A red-faced old man with grease in his beard stepped forward to take the reins, but paused when he saw the girl slide off the saddle. Elijah dropped a coin into the man's palm without a word. Feed her. Water too. The man gave a slow nod and led the horse away, casting one last glance over his shoulder, like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. Inside the inn, the woman behind the counter squinted at them, her hand twitching near a ledger. Ain't got but one room left, small, over the stable. That'll do, Elijah said. She looked from him to Lark, her lips pursing. She ain't. Elijah dropped 3 coins on the counter. Didn't ask for your blessing. The E. Woman scooped up the money and turned without another word. They climbed the narrow stairs in silence. Lark held the railing, legs trembling. The room was little more than a cot, a chair, and a wash basin, but it had 4 walls and a door that latched. That counted for something. Once inside, Elijah knelt by the basin, poured water from the pitcher, and wrung out a cloth. He turned, only to find Lark standing motionless in the center of the room, eyes wet but jaw still firm. "I can clean myself," she said, her voice smaller than before. He nodded and handed her the cloth. "I'll be outside." She didn't thank him. She didn't have to. Elijah stood in the hallway, arms crossed, staring out the narrow window at the street below. A few men stood loitering near the saloon. One of them leaned against a post, spinning a coin across his knuckles. Another smoked a cigar, eyes locked on the window like he knew Elijah was watching. They weren't locals. That much was clear. Clean boots, cold stares, waiting. He didn't need to be told. They weren't here for a drink. A door creaked behind him, and Lark stepped out, face damp and eyes clearer. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the shawl over her belly. "I can't stay here long," she said. Elijah nodded. "We won't." But they both knew they'd be staying longer than planned. Downstairs they took a seat near the window. The innkeeper's daughter brought out bowls of stew and stale bread. Elijah ate with his eyes never leaving the door. Lark barely touched hers. "Who are they?" he asked. She shook her head. "Lark, I don't know. Not their names. Just who they work for." She looked up, her voice hollow. "The man from Mason Ridge. His name's Corbin. His family owns land. People. They think they own me, too. What did you take from him?" She hesitated. Not what, who. Elijah's brow furrowed. She looked down at her hands. "His brother. I fell for the wrong one. He wasn't like them. Said he'd run with me. Start over. We made it as far as Clearwater Canyon. That's where they found us. Killed him. Left me." She swallowed hard. "Didn't know I was carrying." The room felt colder. "You think he's the father?" Elijah asked. She nodded once. "But that don't matter. Corbin wants me back. Not because he wants a family. He just doesn't like losing." Elijah sat back, stew forgotten. "How far along?" 8 months. He looked out the window again. The men were gone now, which meant they were repositioning. Worse. "We leave at dawn," he said. "No fire, no noise. We take the North Ridge." She didn't argue, but dawn never came quiet. They woke to shouting, then a crash. The window above the stable shattered, inward, and smoke poured through the floorboards. Elijah yanked Lark up, shoved her boots into her hands, and threw open the door. A man stood at the far end of the hallway. One hand held a lantern, the other a gun. "You come out that door and—" "I shoot," he said, grinning. "You don't come out and I burn you out." Elijah's mind moved like a struck match. No back door, no safe exit. And Lark, too slow to run. "Hold on to me," he said, turning. "What?" "Now." He grabbed the blanket from the cot, soaked it in the basin, wrapped it around her shoulders, then slammed the chair through the window. Glass scattered. Smoke swirled. "Jump," he said, already climbing out. She hesitated, but only for a second. They hit the ground hard. Lark landed, on her knees with a cry of pain, but Elijah was already dragging her toward the alley. The front of the inn exploded with flame behind them, and from the shadows ahead, 2 more men stepped into view. "You run," Elijah said. "I'm not leaving you." He pushed her hard. "Run!" She bolted. The first man came at Elijah with a knife. Elijah dodged left, slammed a shoulder into the man's gut, then brought his elbow down on the back of his neck. The second one was faster, smarter. He circled. "I don't want to kill you," he said. "You will if you try," Elijah muttered. They clashed hard, fists, elbows, knees. The man landed a punch to Elijah's ribs, but Elijah caught his arm. and twisted hard enough to crack bone. The man screamed, dropped, and then the street was full of shouts again. Horses, guns. But Elijah only heard one thing, the sound of Lark crying out. He ran. She'd slipped in the dust near the livery, clutching. Her belly, face contorted in pain. Elijah, she gasped. It's time. No, not now. Not here. He lifted her in his arms, bullets slicing the air behind him, and charged into the stable. The old stable hand jumped, then saw Lark's face and nodded. There's a cellar. Back corner. Go. They disappeared into the dark. Lark was breathing in short, sharp bursts. Her hands dug into his arms. Don't leave me, she whispered. I won't. Outside, the night burned. Men searched, guns loaded, and deep below a barn soaked in the smell of hay and fear. A girl, no, unwanted braced for labor, and the man who bought her for $3 whispered prayers he didn't know he remembered. The cellar was no more than a crawl space hacked into the earth, narrow, suffocating, the ceiling low enough Elijah had to stoop as he carried her down. The door was hidden under a pile of sacks and broken tools, and the moment it shut, the chaos above turned into a muffled echo of hooves, shouting, and the roar of flame. Down here, it was just the two of them, dirt walls, darkness, the rasp of her breathing. Lark writhed on the thin mat the stable hand had shoved down into the hole with them, clutching her belly like she was holding herself together through sheer will. She was soaked in sweat, her shawl twisted around her shoulders, hands clawing at the earth. Her teeth were clenched so tight Elijah feared she'd bite through her own tongue. And yet, she didn't cry. Not once. Not from the pain. Not from fear. Elijah knelt beside her, heart pounding like a war drum, and felt more useless than he ever had in his life. I've never done this, he said, voice rough. Me neither, she shot back between gritted teeth. He almost laughed. Almost. You're early, he said. I guess the baby didn't get the message. She screamed then, a sound that didn't belong in the world above. Something deeper, something raw. It went on until her voice broke into sobs, and Elijah had to press his hand over hers, steadying her, even when he felt like the whole world was coming apart. Above them, boots scraped floorboards, muffled voices. Nothing here. Check the barn. Again! Elijah froze. He grabbed the cloth from his pack, soaked it in water from the jug the stable hand had tossed down, and held it to Lark's lips. She drank, just a sip. Enough. Elijah, she whispered, clutching his shirt. If they find us, don't let them take the baby. He looked her dead in the eyes. They won't. But the truth was, they were closer now, and time was bleeding faster than he could stop. She bore down with another cry, and suddenly her hands were clawing at her skirts, breath hitching. It's coming! Elijah, I feel it. He stripped off his coat and rolled it under her head, then pulled up his sleeves and whispered the only thing he could think of. You're not alone. He'd never delivered a child, had never even seen one born, but there was no one else. No doctor, no midwife. Just a girl he'd bought for $3 now, screaming through agony he couldn't take from her, and a child fighting its way into a world that wanted it dead before it ever drew breath. It felt like hours. It was probably minutes. Time down in that cellar didn't follow rules. She pushed, screamed, bit into his sleeve. And then, suddenly, there was silence. Too silent. Elijah held the slick, trembling weight in his hands. A baby girl, still, quiet, too quiet. No, he said, panic surging like floodwater. No, no, come on! He cleared her nose, her mouth, patted her back. Nothing. Then, so small it almost didn't register, a cough, then another, and then the sound tore from her chest, shrill and furious, filling that cellar with life. Lark let out a sound between a sob and a laugh, arms reaching. She's breathing, Elijah said, his voice cracking. He wrapped the baby in his shirt and laid her against her mother's chest, his hands trembling like he'd never held anything so fragile in his life. "She's got your fight," he said. Lark looked up, tears tracking her dirt-smeared cheeks. "I thought I'd lost her." "You didn't," Elijah said. "Not today." The baby nuzzled close to her mother's warmth, fussed once, then settled, eyes closed. Elijah watched them both, a weight pressing down on his chest he hadn't even realized he carried, the kind of weight that felt too close to purpose. But above them, the noise hadn't stopped, and something was shifting. A creak of wood, heavy boots, a voice closer than before. "Elijah Cole, we know you're down there. Come out quiet, and we won't hurt the girl." Elijah froze. He didn't recognize the voice, but they knew his name. He reached for the pistol at his belt, checked the rounds. 3 left. Not enough. He leaned close to Lark. "Stay quiet. Don't move, no matter what." Elijah, he didn't answer, just crawled to the steps and cracked the cellar door half an inch. They were inside the barn, 3 men, one by the horses, one near the hay bales, the third standing almost directly above the hatch. That one, he recognized. The same man from outside the inn, leather coat, grinning like a snake who'd just cornered a rabbit. "I said, come out," the man repeated. Elijah took a breath. He didn't believe in odds. He believed in choices. And this one was easy. He kicked the hatch open and burst out in one motion, pistol raised, shooting before the man had time to flinch. The first shot took him in the thigh. He screamed and dropped. The second grazed the shoulder of the one near the hay, sent him sprawling. The third had better aim. The bullet tore through Elijah's side. He staggered, barely kept his feet. Fired the last round, missed. Then they were on him. Fists, boots, pain. He hit the ground, mouth full of blood and dust. The world spun, went dark at the edges, and then a scream. Lark. He shoved one man off, swung blindly, connected with bone. The man went down, but Elijah couldn't see straight, couldn't stand. He was bleeding out fast. "Stop!" a voice barked, and just like that, everything froze. The barn door creaked. A fourth figure stepped inside, long coat dusted in ash, spurs silent. The others backed off like dogs from a bigger wolf. The man didn't speak right away, just looked down at Elijah, then toward the cellar. "So she's down there," he said. Elijah tried to rise, failed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," the man said calmly. "You give us the girl. The baby too, if you care. 2. We take her back where she belongs. You get to keep breathing." "She doesn't belong to you," Elijah spat. The man crouched, expression unreadable. "Everything in this territory belongs to someone. She chose wrong, and now she pays for it." Elijah's vision blurred. "She's not yours to decide for." The man stood. "That's where you're wrong." He raised his gun, and that's when the shot rang out. Not from him, but from the loft above. The man staggered, fell forward, blood blooming on his chest. From the shadows, the stable hand stepped into view, holding Elijah's dropped pistol in both hands. His arms trembled, his face was pale. "I've seen enough devils in my life," he said softly. "Didn't think I'd see him here." The remaining 2 men didn't wait. They ran, one limping, the other holding his side, vanishing into the black. Elijah tried to push himself up again, and this time the stable hand was there, pulling him to sit against the wall, pressing a cloth to his side. "Hold that. Don't. You dare bleed out on me." Lark appeared at the top of the stairs, baby clutched tight to her chest. She looked like a ghost, pale, shaken, alive. "Elijah, I'm fine," he lied. The baby began to cry again. "She's loud," Elijah muttered. "She's perfect," Lark whispered, sinking beside him. The stable hand looked between them. "You can't stay here. More'll come." "I know," Elijah said. "We just need an hour." "Won't have that." "Not unless you ride now." Lark's face tightened. "He can't ride. He's bleeding." "I'll ride," Elijah growled. "We go north. You won't make it 10 miles. Then I'll make 9, he said. The stable hand nodded and vanished, returning minutes later with a mare already saddled and packed. "Go out the back, ride hard, don't look back." Lark helped Elijah to his feet. Every step was fire, but he didn't falter. Not with her beside him, not with the baby sleeping against her breast. Tiny fists clenched like she was ready to fight the whole damn world. They mounted together, and as they rode into the dark, Elijah knew one truth clearer than anything else. He hadn't saved her. She'd saved him. And now, with blood leaking from his side and death still hunting them across every ridge, he was going to make sure she got to the other side, no matter what it cost. The wind whipped through the pines like a warning. Cold, sharp. It screamed in Elijah's ears and clawed at his open wound like a rabid dog. The mare galloped under him as if she knew this ride meant more than distance. It meant survival. Lark clung behind him, one arm around his waist, the other cradling the baby tight against her chest. She whispered to the child every so often, soft words Elijah couldn't make out through the pain. But he knew they weren't for the baby. Not really. They were for her, to keep herself from breaking. He didn't know how he stayed in the saddle. Blood soaked his side, hot at first, now chilling as it dried. The sky above had turned a deep violet, and the stars blinked overhead like tiny eyes watching from a safe distance, too far to help, too far to care. They crested a ridge, and the land below opened wide. Scrub plains, low hills, a cabin, barely visible in the dark, nestled among a clump of cottonwoods. Elijah pointed. "There, safe house." "Whose?" Lark asked. "Mine. Used to be." He could feel her tension even through the saddle. "Is anyone there?" Not anymore. They rode in silence after that, every hoofbeat a countdown. By the time they reached the cabin, Elijah could barely lift his leg to dismount. He nearly fell, would have collapsed into the dirt if Lark hadn't caught his arm. She wasn't strong, not really, but she was steady. That mattered more. She helped him inside. The place was just one room, fireplace, table, bed, and a chest full of dust and regret. Elijah slumped into the chair and pressed his hand to his side. Blood. Still warm. Lark moved fast, setting the baby in the middle of the bed with blankets tucked high. Then she turned to him, eyes flaring with something new. Fury. "You're dying!" "No," he rasped. She grabbed his chin and turned his face to hers. "Don't lie to me." He didn't. Not this time. "I'll last long enough." "For what? To bury yourself?" He tried to laugh, but it turned into a cough. "Long enough to figure out what we do next." Lark knelt and peeled back the soaked cloth. Her breath caught. "I need to stitch this." Elijah winced as she poured whiskey across the wound. "Aren't you tired?" She didn't look up. "You didn't let me die. I'm not about to let you." She worked quickly. Her hands shook at first, but they found their rhythm. Every puncture of the needle made Elijah see stars. By the time she tied the last knot, he was drenched in sweat and shaking like a leaf. But the bleeding had slowed. The pain hadn't. But pain was something he knew how to carry. She sat back on her heels, breath ragged. "You're going to have a scar." "Good," he muttered. "One more for the collection." He leaned his head back and tried to breathe without tasting iron. Outside, the wind had shifted. Softer now, but too calm, like the land was holding. "It's breath." "They'll come," Lark said. "I know." She stood and paced. "We can't outrun them forever." "No, but we can outthink them." She turned. "What do they want, Elijah? Why us?" He looked at her long and hard, then at the baby, who was awake now, watching the room with wide, dark eyes. They want her. They want what she means. And what's that? Proof. Lark's brow furrowed. Of what? He exhaled slowly. Of something they were trying to erase. She stared at him, but before she could ask more, a sound cracked through the silence outside. A branch. A step. Elijah was up in an instant, reaching for the rifle he'd stashed under the floorboards years ago. It still worked. He checked it. Loaded. Lark grabbed the baby and pressed her close. Elijah crept to the door and eased it open a fraction. Nothing. Too quiet. And then, a whisper. Elijah. He froze. That voice, low, measured. Come on out, it said again. Ain't no sense dying for a girl you barely know. Elijah stepped outside, rifle raised. The moonlight revealed 3 riders. One had dismounted and stood near the well. The other 2 hung back. The man in front was older than the rest. Grey at the temples, long duster brushing the ground, revolver still holstered. He looked at Elijah like they were old friends, but Elijah had never seen him before in his life. You brought fire to a saloon full of innocents, Elijah said coldly. You kill anyone? The man smiled. We don't count bodies, son. We count messages. Elijah gritted his teeth. What message is that? You made a mistake, and you're going to fix it. He tossed something into the dirt between them. It landed with a thud. A wanted poster. Lark's face. Wanted. For fraud, theft, escape from justice. Elijah didn't look away. I don't care what's on paper. Maybe not. But the men who hired us? They care plenty. They paid for her return. Alive. The baby too. Elijah raised his rifle. You walk away now. You get to breathe tomorrow. The man didn't move. Son, he said, you think she's innocent? I think she's more human than any of you. A flicker of surprise. Then anger. Suit yourself. The gunfight was brief. Elijah dropped to one knee and fired. One rider fell backward off his horse. The man by the well dove. The third fired and grazed Elijah's shoulder. He returned. The shot and hit the horse. Screaming. Chaos. Lark ducked inside the cabin. Baby screaming now. Elijah staggered to the side of the house, heart pounding, breath ragged, and then silence again. He waited, watched. The moon ducked behind clouds, and from the dark, a voice again. Not from the front this time, from the trees. You're not the only one who cares about her, Cole. That voice. Different. Female. Lark peeked from the window and froze. Elijah, she whispered. I know that voice. He turned. Who? She used to be my friend, before everything. What's she doing here? She was a bounty hunter, and she switched sides. Elijah swore under his breath. They hired her. I thought she was dead. Guess she got better. A shot rang out, into the cabin wall. Splinters flew. Lark dropped to the floor with the baby, shielding her with her body. Elijah crawled over and pulled her back behind the bed. Back door, he whispered. What? We run. She'll follow. Let her. He cracked the door open and bolted. Lark followed. Baby held tight. They ran for the tree line. Elijah stumbling but not stopping. Behind them, another shot. Closer. Too close. They ducked behind a fallen log. Lark hissed. We can't keep doing this. Elijah looked at her. No, he said. We can't. And, just then, another voice cut through the night. Lark! They both froze. That voice. Lark's face went pale. No, she whispered. What? It can't be. He's dead. From the shadows, a man stepped forward. Not a bounty hunter, not a gunman. A priest's collar, torn and weathered. Eyes haunted. Lark, he said again. Elijah raised the rifle. Don't, Lark said quickly. He was the one who married me, the father of the baby. The man took a step forward. You left, he said. You were supposed to be dead, she whispered. They tried, but they failed. I came to find you, and her. Elijah looked between them, heart racing, and just like that, the lines blurred again. Elijah kept his rifle trained on the man in the priest's collar, but his mind was reeling. Lark had gone deathly still beside him, the baby squirming against her chest as if sensing the storm about to break. The man stepped into the moonlight, and his face, half gaunt, half familiar, was like a living ghost. You're not real, Lark whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. You can't be. He didn't flinch. I've been shot, burned, left in a well with no water, but I'm real, Lark. Real enough to bury what's left of the past and take back what's mine. She took a step back. Elijah moved with her. What do you mean, take back? The man's eyes flicked to the bundle in her arms. Our daughter. You don't have a daughter, Lark snapped, voice rising, trembling. You said she was a mistake, that I was a mistake, that your name, your reputation, meant more than we ever would. The man's jaw clenched. I was wrong. Elijah saw it then, the twist of pain in the man's features. Not just anger, regret, but something darker too, something calculated. Lark shook her head. You told them where I was. You led them, didn't you? I told them I'd get her back. That's not the same. You sold us out, she shouted. The baby startled at the sound, letting out a long, thin wail. The man's face broke open then, something between sorrow and fury. I didn't know they'd send killers. I thought they'd wait. I didn't know they'd burn half a town to cinders. But you still told them, Elijah said, stepping between the man and Lark. I wanted her safe, the man snapped. That's my child too. You wanted to erase what you called a sin, Lark shot back. And now you come back from the dead, wearing the same collar you wore when you left me for bleeding in a church attic. Elijah looked at her sharply. She stared at the priest. Tell him. Tell Elijah what you did when I told you I was pregnant. Silence. Then the man, eyes hollow now, spoke low. I told her to leave. I told her she couldn't stay in the congregation, that if word got out, my ministry would be finished. You gave her $3 and a name of a man who might take her in, Elijah said quietly. I didn't think it was real. The priest nodded slowly. I didn't think she'd survive. I nearly didn't, Lark said. Her voice was no longer shaking. It was hard now, solid. But he... She looked to Elijah. He didn't ask questions. He didn't call me names. He didn't look at me like I was a curse. He paid $3 and gave me a home. That's more than you ever did. The wind shifted again, colder now, like something unseen had just slipped into place. The priest took a step back. They'll be here soon. The others. I told them I'd draw you out. But I didn't bring a gun. I didn't sign up for murder. No, Elijah said, rifle still leveled. You signed up for betrayal. Behind them, horses neighed. Lark turned, scanning the ridge. They're flanking, she said. West side. Then we move now, Elijah muttered. The priest lifted his hands. Let me help. Elijah gave him a cold look. Why? Because I still have a soul. And this is my mess. Let me fix it. Lark hesitated. Elijah didn't. You want to make amends? Good. Draw them off. The priest blinked. They'll kill me. Then don't get caught. For a moment the man said nothing. Then he nodded, eyes wet. If I don't make it, tell her I never stopped praying for her. She doesn't need prayers, Lark said. She needs a father. And with that, they turned and ran, skirting the tree line, keeping to shadow. The priest headed toward the ridge, his silhouette swallowed by dark pine. Elijah's wound throbbed with every step. His breath came in sharp, tight gasps. Lark noticed. You can't keep this pace, she said. You'll collapse. He forced a grin. I've run farther, bleeding worse. Liar. Better than being honest and dead. They pushed on another mile before coming to an abandoned mine shaft nestled between hills. Elijah led them, inside. It stank of rot and damp, but it was shelter. He slid down against the wall with a groan. Lark laid the baby on a folded blanket and knelt beside him. She touched his face. Elijah. He caught her hand. Don't. Not now. When then? she asked. When we're not running, she nodded, eyes shining. Do you regret it? Paying $3 for you. He shook his head. Best mistake I ever made. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief, desperate, full of heat and fear and everything that had gone unsaid between them. When she pulled back, neither of them spoke. Outside, a crack of gunfire broke the silence. Then another. Lark grabbed the baby. Elijah tried to stand and couldn't. His legs gave out. You'll have to run, he said. Take her. Don't wait. For me. No. You have to. No, Elijah. She stood and reached into his coat, pulled the second pistol, loaded it. Her hands didn't shake anymore. I won't leave you. He tried to argue, but another shot rang out. Closer. Inside the mine, the echoes made it impossible to know how near. Then a voice called down the shaft. Elijah, we found your trail. A pause. Bring her out, or we come in and smoke you like rats. Lark's breath caught. Elijah looked around the dark shaft. The back wall had a split, barely wide enough for a person. A tunnel. Old. Forgotten. Back. Way, he rasped. She grabbed the baby and the bundle. Can you move? He nodded, teeth gritted. They slipped into the gap, crouching low, Elijah leaning on the wall to steady himself. The air was thick, dry. Dust clung to their throats and lashes. Behind them, footsteps entered the shaft, voices cursing. They moved faster. Then, the tunnel opened. Daylight. They stepped out into the low light of dawn, hills all around, brush, a stream glinting nearby, and a figure waiting, not the priest, not a gunman, a woman. Tall, thin, dressed in black with a long coat, rifle in hand, braid down her back like a whip. She smiled. Took you long enough, she said. Lark froze. You, Elijah whispered. Who? She was one of them, the hunters. Used to work for the men chasing me, until she went rogue. The woman tilted her head. Didn't go rogue, sweetheart. I just realized the wrong side had better money. She aimed the rifle. Lark pushed, Elijah behind her. I won't let you take her, the woman laughed. Take her? Oh no, darling. I'm not here for the baby. She turned the rifle to Elijah. I'm here for him. Lark stepped forward. He's worth more? The woman's smile faded. He's not a bounty. He's a debt. He cost me everything once. Now I take everything he has left. Elijah raised his gun. Too slow. The woman fired, and Elijah fell. Lark screamed, but he wasn't dead. She dropped to her knees, pressed her hands to his chest. The bullet had hit just under his ribs. Blood everywhere. He grabbed her wrist. Run, he gasped. Run. She turned back. The woman had vanished. Not gone. Circling. Lark scooped up the baby, heart pounding. And in the distance, another figure. Riders. Dozens. The real hunt had begun. Elijah was bleeding fast. Each second carved a piece off him, and Lark could feel it. Like the life was being siphoned from her too. His eyes stayed open only because of stubbornness. The same stubbornness that had made him open his door to a girl with $3 and a lie behind her lips. She pressed her palm hard against the wound, feeling the slick heat pulse through her fingers, uselessly trying to stop what couldn't be stopped with hands alone. Elijah, don't you close. Your eyes, she whispered, wild, breathless. Don't you dare. His lips curled. Bossy. Even now. You think I survived all this just to lose you now? His fingers found hers, weak, trembling. Still, not running. No, she said. Not even if the devil himself comes riding. He tried to laugh, but it came out a cough. Blood flecked the corner of his mouth. She looked up, heart banging against her ribs, eyes scanning the slope above them. Where was the woman? She'd disappeared into the trees after shooting Elijah. Gone like smoke. No sound of hooves. No second shot. Not a soul on the ridge, but wind. And yet Lark knew she was still there. watching, waiting, a spider with all her threads laid. She reached for Elijah's pistol and pressed it into his hand, curling his fingers around the handle. "I'm going to draw her out," she said. His eyes flared. "Don't. She wants you. She wants revenge. That's not something you fight on your back. Let me get her close." Elijah shook his head slowly. "You've got the baby. I'll hide her." She didn't wait for approval. She was past that now. Lark tucked the infant into a hollow beneath a rock overhang, wrapping her in Elijah's coat, heart screaming at the separation. But knowing it was the only way, she kissed the baby's forehead, breathing in her tiny scent. "You stay quiet for Mama, all right?" she whispered. "I'll be back." And then she stood, grabbed the rifle Elijah had dropped and stepped into the open. "Come on out," she yelled. "You wanted a fight, didn't you?" A pause. Then the woman's voice, lilting, echoing off the trees. "You're bold. I like that. But boldness is easy when you think you've got something to protect." Lark stepped forward another pace. "I'm not thinking. I'm done thinking." "You don't even know why I want him dead, do you?" the voice continued, coming from her left now. "You think it's about money, bounties, pride. It's not. He ruined me. He's not the one pointing a gun at a woman with a baby." I chuckle. "You think you're special. He's done this before. Took a girl in, made her fall for him, then left her when the bullets started flying." Lark's grip tightened. "You're lying." "You sure? You know what he was before all this? Before you?" Silence, just the wind and the slow shift of shadows in the trees. "I know what he is now," Lark said. "That's enough." Another laugh. "That's never enough. Ask the last girl who thought she could change him." "Oh, wait. You can't. She's dead." Then, a sharp crack. Lark ducked, rolled. The shot missed, but barely. She came up behind a fallen log, rifle raised, heart slamming. And then, movement to her right. She fired. Nothing but leaves exploded. Another shot cracked past her head. She was being herded, pushed into a blind spot. But why wasn't the woman finishing it? If she was so capable, so hell-bent, why play? Lark slid behind a boulder, breath ragged. She realized then, this was a game, cat and mouse. The woman wasn't just after Elijah, she was after her, not to kill, to test, to see how far she'd go. And it clicked. The woman had no interest in the bounty, no real desire for Elijah's head. She wanted to see the girl who'd made him soft, see if she could break her. Lark stood. "I'm not playing anymore," she yelled. "You want me? Come look me in. The eyes." No answer, then footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The woman emerged from the trees, rifle hanging loose in her hands, eyes sharp, mouth curved in a wolfish grin. "Now that," she said, "is bravery, or madness." Lark didn't move. "You won't get to him." The woman tilted her head. "You really love him." "Yes, then die for him." She raised her rifle, a gunshot. The woman's body jolted, then another shot. She staggered. From behind her, Elijah stumbled into view, propped against a tree, barely upright, face pale as paper, smoking revolver in hand. "You talk too much," he said. The woman turned, fury in her eyes, but her knees gave out and she dropped. One last breath shuddered from her, and then she was still. Lark ran to him. He fell against her, heavy, bloodied, but still alive. "You shot her," she said. He grinned weakly. "I've always had good timing. Don't ever scare me like that again," he coughed. "No promises." She helped him sit, checked the wound again. It hadn't bled out entirely. Maybe he'd make it. But there was no time to breathe. Behind them, hoofbeats, dozens. Lark looked to the ridge and saw them. Riders, black coats, long rifles, dust trailing like smoke from hell. "They found us," she said. Elijah reached for her hand. "Then we make our stand." "No," she said. "We end this. She helped him to his feet. They moved fast, back toward the baby. Lark lifted her from the hollow, held her close. The little girl's eyes were wide, unblinking. She knows, Elijah said, brushing a hand over her head. She can feel it. The riders slowed, fanning out, surrounding. A man at the front dismounted. Lark. Elijah, he called. You've run far enough. Lark narrowed her eyes. Who are you? The man removed his hat. Silver-haired, sharp jaw, military straightness to his posture. Elijah knows me, he said. He cost me a fortune once. Now I collect. Elijah squinted. Vanda? The man smiled coldly. I see your memories. Intact. Shame your aim is failing. What do you want? The girl. The child. You. You're not getting any of us. The men raised their rifles. Lark turned to Elijah. Remember what you said when I showed up on your porch? She whispered. He smiled. $3 and a name. Best mistake I ever made. Then let's make another. She turned. Held. The baby high. If you kill us, she shouted to Vanda, this baby dies with us. The men faltered, murmurs. Vanda raised a hand. You wouldn't. You willing to bet? She said. She's not just a child. She's the last of a line. The woman you just sent to kill us? She used to work for you. Ask her what this child's worth. He hesitated. Lark pressed on. We're not bargaining anymore. We're done running. You want us? You come through fire. She lowered the baby, handed her to Elijah, then picked up the fallen woman's rifle and shot the ground at Vanda's feet. I'm not scared of you. Vanda's eyes flicked to his men. None moved. Your men don't want this, she said. They want a payday, not a massacre. More murmurs. One man turned his horse, then another. Vanda snarled. Cowards! But it was too late. The riders began pulling back, one by one, and Vanda was left alone. Lark walked forward, rifle aimed. You lost. He drew his pistol, but Elijah fired first. Vanda collapsed, and silence returned to the hills. Lark stood over him, panting. Then she turned, walked back to Elijah, cradled the baby. They stood in a triangle of blood, smoke, and dust, but alive. We need to get you help, she whispered. Elijah smiled faintly. We made it, she nodded. We made it, but far off beyond the ridge, more riders stirred. This wasn't over. They made camp in silence beneath a burnt-out cedar, just beyond the ridge where Vanda had fallen. Elijah leaned against the tree's blackened trunk, every breath shallow, eyes half-lidded but alert. Lark built a fire from what she could find. Damp, branches, bits of scorched pine, coaxing flame like it was a fragile truth that might vanish if she breathed too hard. The baby, still wrapped in Elijah's coat, slept soundly in Lark's arms, her small breaths the only rhythm that felt natural anymore. Elijah watched Lark move like a man trying to memorize his last miracle. She was no longer the girl who'd offered him $3 and a made-up name. She was war-forged, blood-tested, and hers was the hand that hadn't let go when everything else had tried to make her. He coughed, blood curling at the edges of his mouth. You should have run. I told you, she said without looking back. I'm done running. Lark knelt beside him and pressed a cloth to his side. The bleeding had slowed, but not stopped. She'd used up every bandage in her pack and half of his shirt besides. He'd never seen her hands shake until tonight. I'll find a doctor, she said, or a trader who's got something stronger than hope. He gave her a tired grin. Trader's not going to cut it. I need real stitches, not prayer. You're not dying, Elijah. No? He nodded toward the night sky. Feels like the stars are starting to fade. That usually means something. She grabbed his chin, forced his gaze to meet hers. You are not dying. I still need you. He reached up, fingers grazing her cheek. You've got her now. She needs both of us. A long silence passed. Then, softly, "You never told me her name." Lark looked down at the bundle. The baby stirred, as if she knew she was being spoken of. "I was going to name her after my sister," Lark said. "But now—" She looked at Elijah again. "I was thinking Hope." "Hope," he repeated. "Yeah, that fits." The fire crackled. A wind moved through the trees like it was trying not to disturb the quiet they'd carved from the chaos. And then, distant thunder. Only, it wasn't thunder. It was hooves, dozens, maybe more. Lark rose slowly, baby pressed tight against her chest. She turned toward the sound, ears straining, every muscle tensed. "They're coming," Elijah said. "Finishing what Vander started." "No," Lark said. "This ain't his army. They're too soon, too loud." From the tree line came torches, flickering, dozens of them. Then riders, long coats, wide-brimmed hats, guns at their sides, but not raised. The lead man dismounted before he'd even stopped fully. He moved fast, dust swirling around him, and as he stepped into the firelight, Lark froze. He was older than Elijah. Grey streaked his beard. His shoulders were wide with the kind of weight that didn't come from age, but from what he carried. His eyes scanned the scene once. Elijah bleeding, Lark standing guard, baby in arms, and narrowed. "Which one of you is Lark?" "I am," he nodded once. "I'm Calder Brand." The name hit the air like a dropped knife. Lark blinked. "The bounty hunter?" He ignored the title, stepped closer, slowly, like she might spook. "That baby," he said. "Is she yours?" "She is." He looked to Elijah. "And you the one who took her in?" Elijah coughed a laugh. "If you call getting shot for her, took her in, then yeah." Brand squinted. "That girl, Hope, she ain't just any child. She's my granddaughter." Lark's knees buckled. "What?" The men behind him dismounted. Quiet, respectful, not a threat, yet. Brand nodded at the baby. "My daughter ran from me a long time ago. I wasn't a kind man. I hunted people for money and didn't care much what got trampled in the chase. She fell in love with the wrong man, got herself caught in something too deep. When she wrote to me a year ago, said she had a child coming, I packed up everything, but I was too late. By the time I found the town, she was gone. Dead, they said. No trace of the baby." Lark's breath came shallow. "She wasn't lying then." "Who?" "My sister. She told me she found a baby abandoned on a doorstep. She didn't know where from, just that someone left her in a basket. She died before I could ask more." Brand moved closer. "And you took the baby?" "I didn't mean to. Not at first, but I couldn't leave her. Not once I saw her." He looked at Lark the way Elijah had that first night. Like maybe there was more to her than anyone saw at first glance. "You raised her?" "I tried." He knelt slowly, not reaching yet, just meeting the baby's eyes. "She looks like her mother," he said. "And you remind me of someone I was supposed to be." Lark didn't know what to say. Her hands trembled. Brand stood. "She's safe with you," he said. "I'm not here to take her. I just wanted to see her, make sure she was real." "You rode all this way just for that?" "I'm trying to make amends. I ain't got much time left. But I've got a name, and it's not worth a damn unless I use it for something good before I'm gone." Elijah groaned softly. Brand noticed for the first time how bad it was. "You got a doc?" Lark asked. "He's dying," Brand raised. A hand. One of his men rode forward. "Doc McCrae, best we got." Lark stepped aside, letting the man work. McCrae tore open Elijah's shirt, whistled low, and got to it. Lark couldn't look. She held the baby close, breathing hard, as Brand moved beside her. "You've done good by her," he said. "Whatever happens next, you've got friends now, my men. They'll ride for you. No more running." Lark looked to the fire. "I don't even know what to do with peace anymore." Brand chuckled. "Then let's learn together." The doctor worked fast, muttering to himself. Thread, needle, a flask of something bitter. Time passed like smoke, and finally, McCrae stood. He'll live, the doctor said. But he needs real rest, real food, real care. Lark collapsed beside Elijah, grabbing his hand. He opened one eye. Still here. She kissed his forehead. I wasn't letting you go that easy. Brand clapped a hand on Lark's shoulder. We've got a place up north. Not much, but it's safe. It's yours if you want it. Elijah smiled faintly. You ever going to stop saving us? Brand looked down at the baby. Not till I've earned my place. They left before sunrise. The ride was slow. Elijah in a wagon, Lark by his side, the baby nestled between them. Brand rode ahead, clearing the way. His men flanked them, not as guards, but as a wall between them and the world they'd been running from. For the first time in months, Lark felt something like ease settle in her bones. Not peace, not yet, but hope. Real hope. The kind that was heavy and warm and alive. The kind you name a child after. She leaned into Elijah, who was already dozing, his hand resting over the baby's chest. You still think I'm trouble? She asked softly. He smiled in his sleep. Best trouble I ever bought. And as the sun crested the horizon, turning the world gold, Lark knew this wasn't the end, it was the beginning, a real one, for all three of them.